So I'll take the Duggledore Orcs, leaving you with the Hill Troll, the Nazgul, and Smog. Hello, and welcome to OuterSparse's review of Lord of the Rings,
the card game.
Join us as we take a romp through Fantasy Flight's two-dimensional Middle-earth. OuterSparse. Like many of the games we'll review on this channel, Lord of the Rings,
the card game,
is a living card game, or LCG. This means that there are regular releases of new content and CODs, so you'll never have a shortage of new adventures. Also, before sitting down to a game, players must construct custom decks. But don't worry, like all of Fantasy Flight's LCGs, the core set comes with pre-made introductory decks to get you started. Now, Lord of the Rings,
the card game,
is unique among LCGs in that it's a cooperative game instead of being a head-to-head competition between players. It actually feels a lot like playing a JRPG on your table. Each player has 3 heroes lined up in front of them and fights their way through wave after wave of orcs, spiders, and other servants of the Dark Lord. You'll also play allies and equipment to bolster your adventuring party and help as you fight your way through each quest. Now, a quest is a series of stages represented by special quest cards. For example, here we have Journey Along the Anduin, which is 3 stages. The first stage of a quest will provide special setup instructions and, more importantly, the recipe for the encounter deck. The encounter deck will be your opponent for each game. It's made up of vile monsters, dangerous terrain, and unpredictable calamities. These CODs are divided into themed sets which you combine for each quest. The core set alone has Spiders of Mirkwood, Deadly Orcs, Relentless Wolf Riders,
the Eye of Sauron,
the Mighty River Anduin, the Foreboding Tower of Duggledore, and a tree. The 3 initial quests use these in different combinations of increasing difficulty and offer a great introduction to the game. As per usual, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the rules. For that, please check out FFG's excellent How to Play video. Today, we're just going to give you a general rundown so you can get an idea of the game's flow. The objective of Lord of the Rings,
the card game,
is to complete the stages of the chosen quest before all your heroes die or your threat dial reaches 50. Now, the threat dial is a really cool mechanic. Depending on your choice of heroes, it will start somewhere between 20 and 30 and gradually tick up every turn of the game. This puts your party on the clock, pressuring you to make risky decisions with thrilling and sometimes deadly results. While turns are actually divided into a whopping 7 phases, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Gameplay begins with playing out your dudes and equipment and continues on into questing and fighting. Because your characters can generally only take 1 action per turn, your guys who you send out questing won't be available for blocking. And likewise, your defenders won't be doing any goblin cleaving. Questing plays out like a game of Middle-earth Texas Hold'em. Each player may commit characters to progressing the quest, wagering their combined willpower against the combined threat of CODs in the staging area. Once bets are made, extra CODs are added to the staging area for each player in the game. A successful bid of higher willpower means quest progress. However, higher threat means the players will tick up their threat dials, drawing them closer to defeat. When the staging area is all mountains and meadows, it can be tempting to commit your entire party to the quest, hoping to speed through it. But this can easily leave you facing down a horde of angry orcs with no one left to defend. It's a test of your appetite for risk and your tolerance for dead dwarves. Lord of the Rings,
the card game,
does a lot of cool things with combat. Since there's no human scheming for the monsters, the game instead relies on clever mechanics to keep players on their toes. Not only is there a simple mechanism to allow enemies to actively engage players, but it also incorporates hidden information in the form of shadow cods. Whenever an enemy attacks, it's dealt a face-down cod off the encounter deck, which isn't revealed until after you've chosen a defender. You might think it's safe for Gimli to block that spider, but the shadow cod could make its attack lethal, or drain his resources, or maybe do nothing at all. Flipping the shadow cod also adds a fun physical element to combat that feels a lot like telling a goblin blackjack dealer, "Hit me." So, we're big fans of this game, but there are some things to consider when deciding if it's right for you. Because Lord of the Rings,
The card game.
is a cooperative game, it offers a drastically different experience than a competitive game. Your opponent is not a thinking human, it's simply a system. You can't outwit the encounter deck any more than it can capitalize on your misplays. The fun of this game comes from working together with your friends to overcome the unrelenting challenges of the quest. As with any cooperative game, you also need to be careful of the scourge of quarterbacking. While a dominant player can end up dictating group strategy, the game's table talk rules do a lot to mitigate the issue. The rules prevent you from sharing specific information about your hand, no naming cods, and no reading off rules text. In addition to helping with quarterbacking, this can also lead to some funny moments as you try to hint, wink wink, nudge nudge, here comes Gandalf. Lord of the Rings,
The card game.
does a great job naturally dividing roles between players, ensuring everyone has their own area of responsibility. In our playthroughs, we've seen players assume roles like Chief Questing Officer, Secretary of Combat, Elf Coin Banker, and of course, the always important Deputy Minister of keeping everyone not dead. One important thing to note about player personalities though, this game will benefit if you have a rules police on hand. COD interactions can get fairly intricate, and wildly illegal plays can seem surprisingly reasonable when you're facing down a Nazgul. It helps a lot to have someone who can calmly enforce the rules, even if it means losing sometimes. On that note, this is not an easy game. You will lose, and often. Most quests present a reasonable challenge, but there's always the possibility of getting smoked out of nowhere by a series of bad flops from the encounter deck. This can even happen in the earliest turns of the game, which can be incredibly discouraging. But this variance also keeps the game fresh, and quests will never play the same way twice. I personally love deck building in COD games. I love exploring COD interactions and making a deck my own. From what I've seen of Lord of the Rings,
The card game.
this aspect is not as deep as it could be. The first Mirkwood cycle of expansion packs offers very limited and linear options. If you purchase all 6 packs, red will be able to create an Eagles deck, blue a Rohan deck, and so on for the other colors. It feels like the designers are providing players with pre-made archetypes rather than options for exploration. This might just be the nature of the game though. Each pack provides a whole new quest, meaning a large chunk is taken up by new CODs for the encounter deck. Perhaps Lord of the Rings
The card game.
is designed to be more about deck tuning than outright deck building. This is a perfectly fine design choice, but I would have liked to see a little bit more freedom. OuterSparse. Wrapping it up, Lord of the Rings
The card game.
is a fabulous cooperative adventure to explore with your friends. The varied quests make it perfect for game nights, and even the most casual player can find a role for themselves. If you're hardcore into COD games, this probably won't become the game you play, but we think it will make a great addition to your library. COD game?
Great game.
Great game.
OuterSparse. OuterSparse.
OuterSparse.